How about if I unmute myself? Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Thursday, and sorry about that. I often mute that so you guys don't hear me fiddling around while I'm getting ready. But hello and welcome, everybody, on this beautiful Thursday. Good evening, good morning, and good night to whoever it is out there who that counts for. All right, good. My wife's telling me my sound's good. So, man, I had a productive day today. You ever hear that go clean your room thing that Jordan Peterson always says? We finally cleaned like our living room and oh, I can like breathe again. So let's say hi to everybody. Let me get it up here. First things first, people are giving me supers before I even get on today. Patchy with a 2 spot. Raquel Kelly with a big 35. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Raquel. I really appreciate that, Raquel. You're entitled to one big beautiful question and answer. So if you've got a question or whatever that you want me to read out, make sure that you at me, or Camilla's still here. You can probably at her. I think she's here somewhere in the chat. Shrieking Violet. Yep, you can at her or me and make sure we see it. Put it in all caps too if you have a question or something you want me to read out. All right, George Coggins is here. He says, "Bah, I'm early." Yeah, he came a little bit early. I saw that. Go, hi legend, how are you? Kelly Meadows says good evening. Siege is here. What's up, CJ? Good evening, he says. Jason is here. What's up, Jason? Hope you're doing your homework. He says happy Thorne's Day. Let's go. Been ready to listen. Joffrey's here, of course. What's up, Joffrey? Evan's giving us a wave. Let's see, who am I missing here? I saw some regular people. Jay Baldeo. Shouldn't have smoked that she. Now I'm stuck in the non-duality Luciferian black magic shadow work. Weekly nerd hangouts. What's up, nerds? We need to get Jen back on. It's been a hot minute. Let's see. Nanerta. What's up, Nanerta? You know, I got your text on Discord. Many and frequent apologies for not responding. I'll have to review it. I get a lot of DMs, I'm sure you know. So although it's gotten a lot better lately, I guess I'm not as popular as I was, so that's kind of a good thing in some ways. But I'll have to check it again. I didn't get a good look at it, you know. I got a lot going on, but I will definitely look at it again, especially if you like give me a wave in that chat so I remember to look at it later. Anthony Viv, hi Thorne. Actually able to make one live for a change. You know, I need to do more daytime ones too. A lot of people say that they would watch more if I did daytime ones. Skies, I guess that's how you're saying it. SSKY3S. Hi, what's up? Solora S, good night, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad's cool. You know, those are areas I wouldn't mind checking out. Oh, I see you retracted that. I guess we don't want people to know where you're from. But ooh, hold on. There we go. Yeah, Trinidad. You know, that's an interesting area. Let's see. All right, so tonight we'll probably just be going for like 2 hours tonight. We might keep it a little short. I had sushi for dinner, and one of the things I did wrong was I had cucumber, and I love cucumber, but the problem with cucumber is I'm one of those people that when you give me cucumber, if it's not, especially if it's not the burpless kind, if you give me the burpless kind, I'm all right, usually. But if you give me the regular kind, my guts just turn into like a churning burp factory. Like it is not cool, bro. I don't approve. It is not, I don't recommend it at all. So, yeah. Bunny, what's up, Bunny? She says, DH, I would love to hear your views on the afterlife. This is something you can share. To a degree, I mean, there's some limits because, you know, obviously I am still breathing. But I could definitely talk to you about my thoughts on that. And what the various traditions and even science has to say about that now. So people don't know this, but around the world, most cultures are a little bit more open to questions and ideas that are not necessarily in line with materialistic science. In other words, in America and the West, but especially America, but the West, there is this dogmatic, um, insidious, in my opinion, dogmatic tendency to reject out of hand ideas that conflict with the materialistic physical philosophy that underlies materialistic science. Now, I just did a post on Facebook. Excuse me. See, I got the burps. I took some stuff for it, by the way, so pardon me if I burp a few times. I do apologize. I did a post on Facebook 2 or 3 days ago talking about how one of the big mistakes that modern occultists and magicians and spiritual people often make is they try to conflate or validate their spirituality and their esoteric stuff as if it is science, or as if science is somehow applicable to it. Now, there is a fundamental reason why this is a misguided thing. And I'm just going to touch on this briefly before I move into this other thing. The problem here is that science, in its correct application, is only really valid for studying and measuring phenomenon. So what that means is physical phenomena. They don't have a way to measure or study or have anything to do with what is a subjective experience. If it doesn't have an objective, in other words, physical or material quality to it, they can't study it in any sort of honesty. They can only use a priori reasoning and then make assumptions. So, for example, when they measure your brain with various instruments, they can tell what activity is going on. They can tell what parts of the brain are having activity. They know, which parts of the brain have something to do with different kinds of things that you do. But they make some assumptions based on that, which they are just assumptions. They are based on what they know. They are rational assumptions, but they aren't truth yet. In fact, they're not even close. So here's an example. When scientists hook your brain up to the correct device, be it an EEG or a brain scan or whatever they do for that, they can see what parts of the brain are active when you're doing certain things. So, for example, if you are seeing something, a part of your brain will obviously have a bunch of activity in it. If they turn that part of your brain off, like they can use a magnet, or was it microwaves, whatever they can use a sort of send a signal to your brain and temporarily switch that part of your brain off, and your experience will adjust, will change. One of the things that they've done is they can literally turn off color vision. There's a thing they can do. They can hit your brain with a certain pulse of energy and temporarily switch off color vision until they switch off the device. So you still see normally, but it's all in black and white, basically. Now, scientists have concluded that this means that the brain generates experiences, and it is also the brain that generates consciousness. In their mind, because there is such a close correlation between brain activity and subjective experience, they believe that the brain causes it. Now, that isn't necessarily true. Your brain may simply be what thoughts and things look like from the outside. That doesn't mean that they generate them. They coincide, they correspond but they don't necessarily cause. There may not be a causal relationship between the two. Or if there is, it's possible that there is more to it that is non-physical that is also involved. And we have reason to suspect this. Now, I'm just wearing my old school skeptical atheist materialist hat so far. Okay, I haven't even touched in the other part yet. But it's important we discuss this, because if you're ever really questioning it, you need to be able to have an understanding of the science behind it, because that is a big stumbling block, especially today, because they really want you all to be in this materialistic physical mindset. They don't want you to have a spiritual, especially about advanced spirituality. They don't want you to have that. And if you're going to have spirituality, they want you to have like flaky new age bullshit, you know, love and light, everybody let's be nice and in other words, slave religions. They want you to have a slave religion, which is what it is. It's the peasant religion or the slave religion. They want you to have one of those that keeps you pliable. And if you look a lot, I'm not saying that like theosophy and all that is that, but modern new age spirituality, as we normally understand it, is very much a docile sheep kind of spirituality. It's not very rational. It's very superstitious. It's very rub this crystal on your balls and, you know, you'll have fertility or something. It's very primitive. It's very childish, in fact. There's not a lot of higher mystical stuff in it. And you get a little bit better. You get into like, you know, you get into like more organized or better traditions. You have like Wicca and stuff, which are a little better. You know, they're based like on the Golden Dawn, and you have Golden Dawn, you have all these different traditions. So they're a little better. Some of them are much better. Okay. But they discourage those. You know, I don't know if you ever noticed. They encourage crystal rubbing new age stuff, and they discourage philosophy, metaphysics, and all of that. Science is a tool, and it is not equal to metaphysics. Metaphysics is the higher philosophy. Science is below it. And a good scientist will admit that. A good scientist, usually quantum physicists and those kinds of people, they're almost an idealist. If you listen to them talking about what they think the nature of reality is, they sound almost like Pythagoras, or, you know, a little bit like Plato a little bit sometimes. With the mathematical formulas and the quantum physics stuff they talk about. It's especially the guys who think it's all math and that's all it is. Those guys are basically right there with Pythagoras. It's just like an updated version. There's no spirituality to it, but they're in an idealistic mindset. When I say idealistic, I don't mean, you know, when someone's normally called an idealistic person, that means that they have like high values or something. When I say that, I mean idealist philosophy. Okay, idealism, philosophical idealism. All right. Now, science says that when your brain's damaged, that's it. Consciousness, thoughts, all of that go away. When your brain is done, when you're dead, if your brain gets scrambled, whatever, not only does your body die, but consciousness is gone, thoughts, experiences are gone too. But there's a problem here. There is a mountain of evidence building all the time. And there's some very, very rational researchers. They're not fringe at all, who are investigating this. So you have near-death experiences. And I saw this video that was really very important to me. I have it saved on my list. If I could find it, I'll have to look for it. It's like buried somewhere. There are people who have near-death experiences where the brain is absolutely, according to everything science knows, the brain should not be producing experiences. In fact, consciousness should not be there. Consciousness should be completely gone. And yet people report not only having experiences, they will have experiences of things, of knowledge of things that they should not know. Things that happened while they were dead, according to science. They saw and knew things happening in the room. They were aware. So there's this building body of evidence talking about near-death experiences. Then you have the body of evidence talking about reincarnation. Now, if you go outside of the US and the West, reincarnation is not something that is so poo-pooed by their scientists. A lot of them are still searching for the truth about that. A lot of them research it with merit. In other words, they think there's merit to the idea. In America, you go to a typical institution of science or medicine and bring up the subject, you will get laughed out of the room unless you are in one of these very unique places where they still discuss it. So, why do I bring it this way forward? Why start here? Because they've got everybody in this culture. From birth, you're indoctrinated with a physicalist or materialist worldview. And they don't want you questioning it at all. Anytime you're in an intellectual environment and your theories, your ideas are laughed at by the establishment, I don't just mean your peers, I mean by like the people teaching you, the people, if you're, that means that it's not really an open and free, it's not really being scientific, in fact. Okay, when scientists, in my opinion, the scientific community should be totally dispassionate. They should be passionate about the subject, but dispassionate about what's true. They should be completely objective, open-minded, skeptical, agnostic about everything. And if I go to them, if I'm an accredited, if I have my accolades and I go to them and I say, I want to do research on past life stuff. Okay. I shouldn't be laughed at. I shouldn't be ridiculed, and I shouldn't be shunned. There shouldn't be peer pressure to shut me up. But that's what we see. So I bring this up first because everybody listening to me, the reason you're asking me about questions about the afterlife is because society has basically yanked you out of the worldview that there is one. I'm not saying this specifically for you, by the way, Bunny. I think it was Bunny who asked the question. But in general, if you're in my audience, most likely you have been yanked out of the spiritual worldview and you're kind of clinging to it. Because in your heart, you believe it, or you know it's true. You can tell that there's got to be more than just this, and you're looking for answers and evidence. You're looking for a reason to believe. Now, why did the ancients believe in an afterlife? Was it because they had near-death experiences? Was it because they had past life knowledge? Is it because of some other reason? When we investigate every rational, and I don't mean superstitious or religious, if we investigate the rational philosophies, the rational metaphysical philosophies, we see there's always an understanding, not just of an afterlife, but of something way more than the material. Every single rational tradition had an understanding of spirituality. This whole idea that spirituality is bullshit or just psychosis or something, that's very new. And it's not actually, It's a perspective. It's not truth. It's not something that is true because they've proved it. They'll say, well, we can't prove a negative, so if it's not true, we can't prove it's not true. Not entirely true. It's true that they can't prove it or disprove it because science is the study of measurable phenomenon. And if the experience is subjective enough, you can't prove it. That's all. So by science's rationale, the color blue isn't even remotely valid. Now, to their credit, they admit that the color blue does not exist in nature, it exists in your mind. Very good. That's actually what every metaphysical philosophy has said too. Every good metaphysical philosophy has in some way, shape, or form, they express that this world is the least real, that this is the most illusory, the most dreamlike. This is the deepest sleep of the soul. Material life is it's like the deepest, most drugged sleep you can imagine. It's the deepest hallucination you can have. Which is interesting because people who have near-death experiences, when they come back, almost, I don't know, I don't want to say everyone because I was always taught as a kid not to say always, never, and all that. But a very significant majority of them say that the experience felt more real than real life. Let that sink in. People who have near-death experiences all tell us, not all, but many of them tell us it is not a dream. They know it's not a dream at all. They know it's not a hallucination at all. It is more real to them than this. Almost all of them, when asked. It's really vivid. It does not feel like a dream. It feels realer than real. It feels like real reality. Like they woke up from a bad dream. So, every ancient tradition has some kind of belief about the afterlife. Here's my problem. Don't call it the afterlife. You never die. What you are was never born, and it will never die. What you are, whether you're, regardless of which version of non-duality, monism, whatever your belief system is, your true being is consciousness. Consciousness was never born. Consciousness witnesses birth. Consciousness never dies. It witnesses death. Consciousness never ceases. But Thorne, if that's true, how come I don't remember before I was born? If that's true, how come when I go to sleep, I'm unconscious? Good question. Let's think about it. Some of you already know the answer to this. For those of you who have doubts and say consciousness can turn on and off, for example, you can be conscious and unconscious. Let me ask you a question. Why do you believe that? Well, I already gave you one version. I don't remember. I wasn't conscious last night. You know, I went to sleep and I had a dream, but between falling asleep and the dream, I remember nothing. So I must not have been conscious. Okay. That's your proof. That's your proof. That's your reason for thinking you weren't conscious, is because you don't remember it. So in other words, you don't know you weren't conscious. You just don't remember being conscious or not. Yeah, but I know I was unconscious because okay. What about 10 years ago to this exact moment? Do you remember what you were doing? Do you remember your exact experience from 10 years ago, right this moment? No? Why not? Does that mean you weren't conscious? And I know some wise ass will be like, well, I was sleeping that day because I was sick. Okay, then go to the day you were awake. Point is, go to a time when you would have been awake, when you would have been having experiences. Go back to then. Do you remember? No? Does that mean you were not conscious? Of course not. Do you remember 10 minutes after you were born? Does that mean you weren't conscious? No. Do you remember what it was like to be in the womb? No. Does that mean you were not conscious? Do you remember 10 minutes before you were conceived? No. Does that mean you were not conscious? No. So lack of memory does not prove consciousness wasn't there. Lack of memory does not mean consciousness wasn't ongoing. All it means is you don't remember it. What are memories anyway? Think about it. Research it. What are memories? Memories are not recordings. They're just not. Your brain doesn't have a tape recorder in there. What happens is your brain, according to science, stores memories as impressions in the brain that, when accessed, your brain recreates the memory. In other words, it recreates what happened. It reimagines it. Your brain doesn't record things like a video camera. It's more like someone taking shorthand, but the shorthand is in the form of just whatever's going on in the gray matter. It's not a real recording, though. So, we can't say that consciousness for sure is off or on in deep sleep, off or on before you were born, off or on after you're dead, and so on. Is there evidence of consciousness independent of the brain? There absolutely is. It's not conclusive according to science, but it is there. Again, there are many studies of people with past life, with near death, all of these kinds of things, especially the near death. That one is a huge, there's another one, okay? Here's the biggest one. This is the one when I was a skeptic and starting to become spiritual again. This one got me going. There was this woman who got, I think, a scholarship to a college. She had an honor with honors. I think she graduated with honors. I think that's what it was. She graduated college with honors. So she wasn't dumb. I think she had an IQ of like 125. But she started having pain. And so she went to the doctor. They did a scan. She had no fucking brain, dude. She had a brain stem. And that's pretty much it. And there's no explanation for how she can function at all, let alone have an IQ of 125, get an honor roll, get on the honor roll. You can look this up. It's not made up. And she's not the only one. There's lots of people like that. So now we know that the brain has neuroplasticity. We know this. We know that the brain, parts of the brain can take over for other parts. Fair enough. But not these parts. These aren't the parts that are known to do that. Usually when we're talking about neuroplasticity, we're talking about the cerebral cortex, the gooey shit on the outside, the outer surface of the brain. That's usually what we're talking about. Now, there is one theory that says that the neurology of the intestines and even the heart may play a role as well. Because there are some scientists who now believe that not only do you have a left hemisphere, a right hemisphere, you also have a gut brain that may also have intelligence. It may also be sentient. You may have 3 people in you and not even know it. Because a lot of people will tell you if you split the corpus callosum, separating the 2 halves of your brain, it is like there's 2 people in there. Your left brain and your right brain can have two different experiences. It's true. So, is the brain involved with consciousness? Absolutely. But here's the rub. Okay, you ready? How do we know about the brain? Close your eyes and think. How do you even know you have a brain? Are you sure there's a brain in here? The brain is an appearance in and of consciousness. And you've never seen your own brain. You never will. You have absolutely no hard evidence, unless maybe you've exposed yourself to an MRI or a CAT scan. Now you've seen this bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, but have you seen your brain? Did you actually see your brain? No. My point here is that we believe we have brains because other people see them in our heads. So we go, oh, I have a brain and my brain is what's doing my thinking. No. What if the brain is just a superficial image of your thoughts? What if brains are just what minds look like on the outside when you're down here in this low level of consciousness? What if brains are just an icon for the mind? But Thorne, then how come things work on it? Like if I take drugs, how come that affects my brain? Okay, fair question. How come placebos affect you? Placebos made of sugar that can somehow cure illnesses? Are you sure that the brain is generating thoughts, consciousness, or experience? No, there's plenty of evidence that shows that even when the brain is off, people can have experiences. They're recorded too many times. Yeah, scientists are still skeptical. They say, well, we don't know what's happening. That doesn't mean that you exist as a soul. Fine. Science isn't meant to decide that. Science is not equipped for that. Science is not designed to test for things that cannot be physically, or should I say phenomenologically, measured in a subjective sense. What you need to do is you need to totally decouple your sense of understanding from just a purely materialistic worldview. So, what does the philosopher say? What does the classical, non-dual, idealist philosopher say? The idealist philosopher says, well, study your Hermetica, study non-duality, study Neoplatonism, study Kabbalah. They're all saying basically the same thing. They're all saying to you that reality is fundamentally non-physical. All of them are telling you that physicality is like a shadow of reality. None of them are telling you that physical reality is real. They're not saying it's unreal. This is where the language gets slippery, okay? Semantics can be a bitch with this part. What is realness? So what does realness mean in philosophy? Different traditions may have a slightly different definition, but the one that is used by most classical metaphysical traditions is permanence. Something impermanent is not real. That which is permanent is real. What does that mean? Let's go to one of my favorite analogies, which is the clay pot analogy. Which is more real, the clay or the pot made of clay? Obviously, the clay is more real than the pot, because the pot is clay in the shape of a pot. You can smash the pot, but the clay remains. So the clay is more real than the pot is, right? So following that principle, what is more real, this or the consciousness? Think about it. See, this is where I'm reading some of your comments, and some of you guys are saying like this and that. I can see right through what you're saying and where your thought processes are going, because I used to think like that. It's difficult to get out of it. Most of you people, not all of you, but most of you people out there in the world listening to me on any given day, you believe that you're looking out your eyes at a real world that's out there. You think that your eyes are like little binoculars, right? And light is coming into your eyes, and that light is somehow what the world looks like. It's not at all. And this neuroscience will totally agree with me here. Neuroscience, if you sat me down with a neuroscientist, an honest one, they would agree with me 100% that none of us have ever seen reality the way it is. Every single one of them would tell you that you're dreaming reality right now. You want me to break your brain? How many of you guys have boyfriends, girlfriends, lovers? How many of you guys like to stare in their eyes and be all cutesy with them? You've never looked them in the eyes, ever. Ever. You've never seen your lover, ever. You've never even seen yourself. You've only seen what your mind creates as a simulacrum, a simulation of what it thinks reality should look like. And every neurologist would agree with that. And there's not one that would disagree. Unless they're a liar. But then they would, that is not even in question. You see, that's where the materialist makes a huge leap of assumption. They assume that what we experience, because we can validate it objectively, that it must be what we see. But that's not true. We might simply agree based on our own personal models what reality is. But that doesn't mean that they look the same or that they are the same. It just means that if I point over there and say, look at that tree over there, you're going to look there and you're going to see whatever trees look like to you. And you're going to say, oh yeah, there's a tree there. So each person is having their own subjective bubble of reality. And each person's subjective experience, and this is down at a lower level of understanding, we're not even in non-duality land yet. Down here in the materialistic realm of experience, we're each having a subjective, we're each at the center of a subjective universe. You ever notice you're always at the center of the universe no matter where you go? That's the irony of science. They spent hundreds of years trying to debunk the spiritualists who said the earth was the center of the universe. They got it right because they said the earth doesn't revolve around, the sun doesn't revolve around the earth and so on. There's more than the solar system. And we're just on the edge of a Milky Way galaxy, and it's not even remarkable this. And science is like, yay, we're useless and worthless. Take that, Christians. Lo and behold, we're still, each one of us, the center of our own universe, period. period. No matter how you slice it. There is no center. It's all the center. Everywhere is the center. Why? Because time and space are an illusion, dingus. It's not just because it might be infinite or something, or it might be on a ball. That's one explanation. The other explanation, which is even more likely, is that time and space is not real. And lo and behold, physical science is now coming to terms with the idea that space-time isn't fundamental. There's something more fundamental than that. Let's go back to the clay in the pot. There's clay that takes the form of a pot. There is existence which takes the form of time-space, space-time. Existence is more real than space-time. Okay. So far, so good. What we get confused on is each one of you guys still thinks that when you put your hand out in front of you, you're seeing your hand. You're not seeing your hand. You have never seen your hand. You have never seen anything. You have never heard anything. Every experience you've ever had is a mental figment, like a hallucination. Every single one. This is the kind of thing that'll get you up at night. You know how many times I sit here and it just blows my mind that I've never, ever seen my wife? She's never seen me. That's kind of heartbreaking in a way if you think about it. Here I am in love with this thing. What am I in love with? My own consciousness. That's what I'm in love with. My own conscious image of her. That's what I'm in love with. Not her. I've never seen her. And yet, I know she's real. Don't I? See, it only sounds like solipsism on the surface because most people don't know what solipsism means. Solipsism basically says you're the only person that exists. Everything else is your imagination. Non-duality says that consciousness is the fundamental essence of reality. Consciousness meaning not just being conscious, not just the faculty of consciousness, but consciousness as an enigmatic sentient being that exists without boundaries or dimensions or form or substance. It is the void that exists. The void, the conscious void, the audient void. That's right, Shrieking Violet. I love the way you make me feel. So, you know other beings exist. You know there is a reality. That isn't at question. Non-dualists are not solipsists. I had this one asshole who got really nasty about it. You're describing solipsism. No, I'm not. Non-duality is not solipsism. And I know George Coggins has been saying, what is it, polysolipsism, something like that. That is a description that sort of emulates the non-dual, but it's very incomplete. It's basically just saying what it is. It's not describing or explaining it, right? Non-duality in whatever form, monism, and I know it's a little bit clumsy to like lump all of these things together, hermeticism, non-duality, but I do, because if you really read them, you realize that they're all basically describing the same thing that the non-dualists are describing. So the Neoplatonists, the non-dualists, the Hermeticists, and a few others, okay? Zen, original Buddhism, they're all describing roughly the same. In fact, you go back far enough, that's the 'Atlantean understanding. The Atlantean understanding is that there is the divine And the divine mind imagines the universe. In other words, the universe you see is a reflection of the divine mind. Your form is just another part of that. And then the divine incarnates into each of us. How can that be? Easy. The same way that someone like you or I could have multiple personality disorder and have 1,000 different people in our head, each one with their own unique lived experience, unique memories, unique perspectives. You can have a fucking dream with all of your alternate personalities present, and each one of your alternate personalities can have a different perspective of the same dream at the same time. And all of them can be known to the same consciousness. So, using modern terms, which is what I'm doing in my newer book, by the way, I'm not demystifying, but I'm sort of taking the traditions and I'm updating them, I guess. I'm sort of, think of it like comparative religion, right? Like what Joseph Campbell did and other people. I'm doing this with all the different esoteric mystical traditions, and I'm distilling out and synthesizing my own personal grand unified mystical theory, okay? And essentially, they are all describing some version of dissociative identity disorder on a cosmic scale, on a divine scale, to the point where each and every one of us is an alter, in other words, alternate personality, for the same infinite being. And some alternate personalities are way more powerful and intelligent and big than we are. In other words, just like you are more intelligent than your cat, and your cat's more intelligent than an amoeba, there's beings more intelligent than you. Just as the cells of your body are in your body, they don't share in your intellect, but they do share in your being. You share in the being of something higher. But there's one part of you, which is not a part. There is one thing which is not inferior. It's consciousness itself. And again, when I say consciousness, I don't just mean the faculty of awareness. The faculty of awareness is just one part of the nature of consciousness. Or you could say the nature of the divine. The divine has one nature, but that one nature manifests to us as consciousness, intelligence. I don't mean intellect. I mean raw intelligence, something which is anything that's really enigmatic and a little bit paradoxical or very paradoxical. That's usually the divine. Consciousness. What's your definition of consciousness? Awareness. What's awareness? Please describe awareness. What is it? It's like trying to describe the color blue. You can't do it. I'm the witness. What does witness mean? What does awareness mean? What does consciousness mean? No one can say. We know what it is, but we cannot say what it is. No one can define it in a way that is literal and perfect, like you can define 2 + 2 = 4. Bam, you got that. Every single word you have for consciousness is a recursive circle. What is consciousness? Awareness. What is awareness? Consciousness. Oh, fuck. What is consciousness? Awareness. Subjectivity. Every word you have for it is just a circle describing the other word. And they're all the same word. They all mean the same thing, but you can't define it. Ever. Same thing applies to intelligence. What is intelligence? Is intelligence what a calculator does? No, a calculator is not intelligence. So intelligence is not intellect. In other words, intellect, analytical intellect, 1 + 1 = 2. That's an analytical, calculative intellect. Intelligence is what knows that 2 + 2 is 4. Intelligence is a form of consciousness. It is a nature of consciousness, is a nature of the divine. Consciousness, intelligence, what else? Existence. If you are aware, then you exist. It's not even I think, therefore I am. If you're aware, if you're conscious, you exist. I know, therefore I am. Should have been what Descartes said, but no, he said, I think. What a dope. I would love to meet Descartes. We'd have a good talk. I know, that's my arrogance talking. He probably would blow me away in some ways, but in this one area, it's like, damn it, Descartes, why did you say I think, therefore I am? What a ridiculous... No, I know, therefore I am. He was so close. Just so close. Okay, what else? Well, there's an essence to the divine, is there not? What do I mean by essence? That which gives rise to form and substance. The idea of form and substance doesn't just come out of absolute nowhere. The divine is the source of it. If the divine is the source of it, the divine is boundless, meaning the essence of the divine is also boundless. That essence is idealism, what is meant by like Platonic form, except there is only one form, the monad, the divine, Brahman. And within that, think of infinity is a singularity, and it only becomes infinity when you start cutting it. You cut it infinite times, you've now got infinity. So the Brahman, the divine, that infinite being that you are, has as its essence, not just the potential, the absolute essence of all things. Every shape, every color. How do I know this? Remember what I said before about permanence? Anything that is permanent is real. Anything that is not is unreal. Now, this is where Eastern and Western metaphysics diverges a little bit. The Eastern metaphysician would say that an idea, in other words, potness. Let's go back to the pot and clay analogy. Remember how I said before, the clay is more real than the pot because the clay is more permanent than the clay is more permanent than the pot? The idea of a pot, however, the idea, what you would call potness, is way, way, way more permanent than even the clay, isn't it? Because the idea of potness can be rediscovered. You can forget it. This is why we don't say that we create, like a philosopher would hesitate to say they created an idea. They always say they discover it. Think about that. This goes back to Plato, because Plato had basically proven that ideas that we come up with are remembered because they're always there, waiting to be discovered. 2 + 2 is not a created idea. That is a discovered idea. And that idea is permanent. 2 + 2 will always be 4. In a mathematical sequence. Potness is always potness, whether it's in the form of clay or not. And the essence of potness, however, is not a pot. This is where it gets a little hairy for people's brains. This is where a lot of people are going to just tap out and say, I don't get it. I want you all to think of a pot made of clay. Have you got that image or whatever thought in your head? Okay. That image you have is not the idea of a clay pot. That is the manifestation of the idea of a clay pot. The idea of a clay pot doesn't look like anything. It doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't look like anything. It's not shaped like anything. Potness is an absolute which is given form by the mind. The mind, if we're talking Eastern metaphysics, uses the power of Maya to create the illusion of pots. If we're talking other traditions, it would be it manifests it. That's the word I like to use. So the mind accesses potness, the essence of potness, which is formless, shapeless. Yes, shapeless. You'll say, but Thorne, a pot is shaped like this. It manifests that way. The essence of potness doesn't look like anything. It forms that in your mind's eye. But it doesn't have to. What do you mean it doesn't have to? Okay. Remember what I told you before about your memories? Your memories are not recordings. They're impressions, or they're mnemonic patterns that your brain has, if we're going by the physicalist explanation, which your brain then recreates an image of. Your brain doesn't store a picture of a pot as a pot. It stores a pot as pure essence, information, whatever. It accesses the essence. So let's transcend physicality now. The mind, because remember, the brain is just an idea, isn't it? So the idea of a pot that you have in your mind, this little vase or whatever, that is the manifestation of it. The essence of a pot doesn't look like anything. And there is but one infinite, non-dual essence, the divine. The divine is all essence. It is essence pure. The divine is the essence of everything. The divine is the ideal essence of everything. So the divine is consciousness, intelligence, existence, the ideal essence. What else? Well, depending upon how you look at things, I take the next thing. There's two words that I believe say the same thing: love and will. I haven't come up with a word for both of those together, so I just say love and will. Love and will, in the spiritual sense, are the same nature. Because we're not talking about, oh, I want to fuck that person, love. We're talking about, it's not even a drive. What is love? Remember what we said before. Consciousness, can you define it? No. Not without using circular reasoning. Intelligence, can you define it? No, not really, not without circular reasoning. Existence, can you define it? Not without circular reasoning. What about ideal essence? No, not without circular reasoning. What's ideal essence? It's the idea of something. Oh, fuck. Circular. What's love and will? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. What is love? Define love. Really define it. It's not like for something, because you can hate somebody's guts and still love them, can't you? That's right, George. You can't define it, but you can describe instances of it. That is what it means to be incarnate or in the material realm, is to have a mental projection of it that you can describe, and that's your only way. It's an iconographic reference. It's an iconographic simulacrum that you're seeing, every one of you. None of you see reality. You see a simulation that your brain, your mind, whatever, is producing. And if you're like me, you know the brain is just another idea. So the brain, as you think of it, is not what generates thoughts. It is a product of thoughts. What about will? Will is the same as love. They're the same exact thing. This is why a lot of, like Crowley's like love under will, and other people love will over love, and they're like, okay, love and will are the yin yang of the same thing. Love is the yin. Will is the yang. I would say love and will is the Tao. So if I was going to use another tradition's word, I would just call it the Tao. Love and will is the Tao. Love is not a feeling. Will is not a feeling. Anyone who says love is a feeling, no, it's not a feeling. It's something you know, but it's not a feeling. You do not feel love. You do not feel will. Love is what generates or manifests feelings. Will is what manifests or generates experience. The two together are inseparable. You will to love and you love to will. They are both the same, two sides of the same silver coin. They are inseparable. They go together like back and front. How do I know this? Because if you love something, there is a will. Always there is a will. Love cannot be separated from will, and will cannot be separated from love. I challenge you to do so. I'll put it to you like this. You cannot have will without love or love without will. They both chase each other endlessly. It's a flipping coin. Love and will. The same exact energy, two different directions. That's right. Emotions arise from things like love, but they are not love. So we have 5 things that I just described, and you could probably put more in there, but those 5 things are the most universal ways to point at the divine. They all mean the divine. They are all the same nature as the divine. They are the divine. They are so the monad or the divine, you know it from your own. If you close your eyes and just meditate and contemplate, those 5 things are the divine. Yes, George, I would agree. Love is true will, and true will is love. Abso-fucking-lutely. The one cannot be without the other. Now, how do we know that all of those apply? Because all of those words are the words for the same thing. Are you ready? You're not ready for this. Pick any one of those. Can it exist on its own? Can existence be without consciousness? Can existence be without love and will? Can existence be without intelligence? Can intelligence be without love and will or existence or any of those things? Can any of them exist in a vacuum by themselves? Because as soon as you have one, you have the others. How do I know that? Isn't it obvious? Can there be consciousness without love and will? I don't mean the emotions. Can there be consciousness without intelligence? I don't mean thoughts. I don't mean intellect. I mean the mysterious, enigmatic essence of intelligence. Can there be intelligence without essence? Can there be? No. They're all inseparable. They're all words for the same thing. Consciousness, love, will, essence, existence, and intelligence are all, I don't know how I got to, oh yeah, love and will is one. All 5 of those things are words that mean the same thing, the divine. Now, here's another fun thing. What about the 5 elements of nature? Did you ever think about that? I don't mean literal water. I don't mean literal fire or air. In fact, air is more of a recent, used to be sound, or air was like the ether of space, you know. It was that which vibrates when you speak. It is that which blows. Remember, the ancients didn't have a conception of gas. They didn't know what the atmosphere was, the air. They thought this was empty space that just had some kind of a being to it. They didn't know about gases and air molecules. They didn't know that. That's a stumbling block for a lot of modern practitioners. They think of air as the oxygen in the air or something. No. To the ancients, they meant that which, it's a little, you'll notice if you ask like ancient traditions that, yeah, the breath is an example, but the breath is just, thank you, CJ. The breath, though, is just an expression of it. The breath is just the voice. Think about it. Can you have the voice without breath? No. Why do you think every tradition says, every single fucking one says that this material world began as the word? Om, the word of God, let there be light, whatever fucking thing, it's always a command. The word. So we're talking about sound, what we would think of as sound, vibration. Okay. Interesting. The Thum, yes. Yes, CJ, the Thum. So, what can we apply those 5 elements to those 5 natures? That is really one nature, a quintessence? Of course you can. The 5th element, depending upon your tradition, can be light, it can be aether, it could be space or spirit. I like light right now, but any one of them is fine. What is light always as a symbol? Light in metaphysics is symbol for consciousness and the divine. Always. Doesn't mean anything else. It doesn't mean literal light. It's a word that, why do we say light is consciousness divine? Because light makes perception possible in our normal everyday life. Light is consciousness. Light is the divine. Okay, what comes next? Well, different traditions like to make them hierarchical. I'm cool with making them all equal. Because if you really think about it, let's say you use the pentagram model. Each point of the pentagram is equal. They're all equal. It's just which one you turn the thing up or down that makes one higher than the other. They're all equidistant from at least from across from each other. They're a little different from, you know. They're all aspects of the same thing. Even the 5th element is an aspect of the ultimate, the absolute. So, but you can use it differently. You can say the 5th element is the absolute, and then you have 4 cardinal elements. That's fine. Some people like that model better. I'm fine with that. But consciousness, light. What should come next? Well, if we're going by the more historical tradition, fire comes next. Some people will say, no, fire shouldn't come next, because I get it. If you go to like the Eastern tradition, it actually goes earth, water, fire, air, and spirit or void or whatever. But in the Western tradition, fire comes after the 5th element. Why? Because they saw it sort of like from densities and subtleties. Fire is way more subtle than air. It's way lighter than air. Why? Because it rises, right? So they reasoned that fire, and they don't mean physical fire. Physical fire is just a metaphor. It's just a correspondent metaphor. They don't mean that literal fire, like How many of you guys went to in school when you were younger and you took a class on the history of science and shit, and you had some dumbass fucking teacher sitting there telling you that ancient people believed that within everything was a little bit of flame, a little bit of water, a little bit of air, a little bit of earth, as in literal air, fire, earth, etc. That is not. I fucking hate. Sorry, I'm a little animated. I fucking hate academia. They're so fucking dumb. They really are. They're just so hubristic. They make my arrogance seem tame. Because I'm aware of my arrogance and I wear it on my sleeve as a joke. These motherfuckers don't even know. They have no self-awareness of their arrogance. They thought that these ancients were just dum-dums banging rocks together who thought that there was literal flame, literal water, literal air molecule, literal... No. They knew that they used those as metaphors. And if you really want to know, based on geometry. Pythagorean, Platonic. Plato wouldn't even let you into some of his academies if you weren't well versed in geometry already. Did you know that? Because the material realm is an illusion that begins with number, with geometry. Why do I say that? Because our physical reality, the most fundamental understanding of it that we have is space-time. Space-time is a three-dimensional object. Starts off with a point, then you get a line, then you get another line, so you get a plane, then you flip it and you just stack them up. Now you got 3 dimensions and so on. The ancients understood in ways that modern people don't, because they're so rigid in their mind. So what does it have to do with the afterlife, huh? Sorry, that's a big tangent. I hope it was enjoyable to you. What does it have to do with the afterlife? Because physicality is not reality, guys. Doesn't it rhyme nice? Physicality is not reality. Physicality is an illusion. Reality is the divine. It is consciousness taking the form of physicality. Consciousness, the divine, is the clay in which all things are formed. It is the source, it is the destination, and it is the medium. Salt, sulfur, mercury. Come on, guys, it's in there. Read your books. I'm not even good at this shit. This is the part I'm not good at. This is like reading these books. This is not even the part I'm good at. This is the part that is necessary. Those of you who are practicing magic and all of this stuff, and you don't have any clue about these things, that's fine. You can play with it, but you're doing yourself a disservice. This is important. So what does it have to do with the afterlife? If reality is not physicality, if physicality is not reality, that means that the death of this is an illusion. There is no afterlife because there's no life. There is just existence, having a physical experience. You don't die. What does that mean about the afterlife? That's just another experience the divine can have. You can technically switch right to just pure Turiya, pure Gnostic oblivion. You can skip all of that. You just go right to bliss. Basically that emptiness. But you know what? That's not what the divine wills. That's not what the divine loves. This is why I say traditions like Zen and even Advaita have a tendency towards nihilism and other forms of just no. How many of those traditions tell you that the point of life is to just escape this? No. No. When they mean liberation from suffering, not liberation from experience. They don't mean that look, the divine doesn't have a goal. It's got love and will. There's no goal involved. It's always in pursuit of its bliss. Those nihilistic people who think that the point of life is to stop incarnating, that's a play on words if you don't understand. When they say the point is to stop incarnating, they don't mean you stop living or that you stop experiencing life. It means that you no longer are attached to your identity as you. The divine is not sad to be you. Your mind says you're sad. The divine never suffers. The mind does. And as soon as you begin to associate with consciousness, and thus the divine, suffering diminishes until it vanishes. I know this, although I haven't achieved that where I'm constantly out of suffering. No, I still suffer from time to time, unlike many other people. That's why I don't consider myself necessarily a guru. I consider myself a spiritual teacher at the moment. I haven't fully liberated permanently. I'm not even sure I want to. What? How dare you, Thorne? Maybe that's why I'm more liberated than most, because I'm not on a quest to end suffering. I embrace suffering as part of the game. Without suffering, the game has no fun. There's no risk. It's more fun for me that there's a chance to lose. And that is bliss to me. So I guess maybe I am more liberated than anyone else. Maybe. If you think that the point is to never suffer, that too is a lie. It's all a bunch of mind games. In all of these traditions, East and West, it's mind game after mind game after mind game, symbol after symbol, and they're meant to be corridors of intellectual challenge so that you sit there meditating, contemplating, struggling until you get the epiphany. Wait a minute. And that epiphany opens a door, everything shuts down, consciousness is revealed to be it, and then you're done. At that point, it's just a matter of integrating that through behavior, through life. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you'll struggle as long as you want to. So what's the afterlife? Anything you want. You want afterlife to be heaven and hell? It can be that. You want to die and be told that you're not done yet and you need to come back? You will. Whatever gives you, look up in the Eastern tradition, the game of Leela, or the play of Brahman is what it really means. By play, it means both like a game, but also like a show. It's entertainment. There's no good, there's no evil, there's no this, there's no that. Well, there is down here, but in the ultimate, there isn't. This is a game. This is a play. And it's got good guys, bad guys, winners, losers, suffering, pleasure, bliss, blah, 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 blah. And there's an infinite multiverse of possibility that you can experience. From this reality to a reality that looks like heaven or hell, whatever you want. For a lot of you guys, this is heavenly, this life. For a lot of you guys, it's hell. Objectively, it's neither. So, the afterlife, I spent an hour getting around to the afterlife. The afterlife, there is no afterlife. There's no after. Anybody who's transcended far enough into gnosis can tell you that time and space are an illusion, which means there is no before, there is no after, there's just an eternal being, which manifests as time and space. Technically, there's no reason why you can't just and go back in time, because it's not time. You know why you can't? Because psychically, you are attached to this delusion. I'm attached. If you're here, if you're experiencing this, you're attached. You know when you're not attached? When you're dead ass asleep. When you're dead ass asleep, you could be anywhere. When you dream, you could be anytime. When you go to sleep tonight and you have a dream, know this. That is a form of what many people call the astral. Now, you can have a subjective, you can have an objective. The dream time can be either. When it's subjective, all you're really doing is you're blocking out anybody or anything else that might be able to witness you. When you're dead and you go into that great whatever that you call the afterlife, it can be objective or subjective. Why? Because there is only one being experiencing it all, ultimately. Ultimately, from the divine perspective, it's all subjective. Hey, is that why everybody has a subjective experience? Yeah, I guess that's why, isn't it? The mystery of subjectivity is easily answered when you realize it's all the same divine being having it. When all the same divine being is having an experience, it's always subjective. Why can't we share it? Because it's the same being having it between each person. Each person is the same being having an individualized experience. And when that experience ends, it's the same being. That's why it's always subjective and why we can't share it, because there is no other person to share it. Do you get it? There's no other being to share your subjective experience with. Just you. Thorne, that's solipsism. No, because I'm not saying you, the person. I'm saying divinity. There's only divinity. There's only that. Tattva, Masi, Brahman, the monad. And everything else is a modality with which it uses to experience itself. This sounds difficult, but it's not. It's really simple. That's why it just pours out of me, because once you get it, it's literally that simple. Think about it. Why can't you share a subjective experience? Do you really think there's a wall around you that can't be penetrated? This is why science is fucked up, because they think objectivity is reality, not subjectivity. They think subjective reality is the fake reality. And yet you can't know objective reality save through a subjective experience. Come on. How dumb. How dumb. It's the opposite. It's everything that science tells you, while true, as yes, they absolutely have discovered this and that. Electricity works this way and that way. That I'm not denying. What I'm denying is their interpretation. Too many scientists play philosopher, and they tell you that reality is what they've discovered with their science. And they make these decisions with absolutely no philosophical foundation. And then you get materialistic philosophers who just go with what scientists say, and they screw themselves up. But the non-dualists, the idealists, those people, the hermeticists, those people actually have a much more complete picture, because science is nothing more. I shouldn't say science. The knowledge of science, that which science has discovered, and the operation of science is nothing more than a jewel in the crown of the divine. It is just one little facet of reality. It is just one little way of describing it. It's just a language. It's just an equation. It's just a set of tools. But it's not reality. It's just a way to talk about reality, to describe reality, to discover reality. Yes, scientists do discover reality, but the problem is they think they know better, because they've been indoctrinated into a materialistic worldview, which is from the fucking 16, 17, 1800s. It's outdated as fuck. Well, wait, Thorne, aren't you what you're talking about more out? Yes, except you'll find that antiquity, when it comes to understanding absolute reality, they knew better than we do. You actually have to go back in time to get a more correct understanding of reality itself. Not science, not math or anything. Reality itself was better understood by cavemen. Isn't that nuts? Or maybe not cavemen, but you know what I'm saying. Absolute reality was better understood 6,000 years ago than it is today. And I mean that. Now, me, I like both. I don't play favorites here. I get mad at the scientific establishment, but science is fun. I love astronomy, physics. I love watching them beat their heads against the wall to try to understand the double slit experiment when really there's ways to understand that. I'd have to think on it to give you, I've come up with it a few times, but the basic way to think of it, you know, they're saying consciousness is what determines, look, imagine there's an infinite multiverse in which every timeline and paradigm of possibility exists, and consciousness is scanning through that just like you scanning through a book. This whole quantum probability shit is literally just consciousness localizing in a timeline. That's all it's doing. And it can localize in a way that works one way or another. Well, why does it always work this way? Because patterns exist. Patterns are a thing. The divine manifests patterns, and sometimes those patterns are, to our sense, permanent. You know, this is why I often tell people when they're like, well, natural law says natural law does not exist. How can you say that, Thorne? When I drop a hammer, it always falls. That doesn't mean it's a law. Thorne, that's bullshit. It always falls. You're just talking about a really long pattern. You're not talking about a law. How do I know that? Well, first of all, scientists have a lot of hubris and they think that they decide what the laws are. They think they discover laws. They don't discover laws, they discover patterns. And scientists have discovered that if you go back far enough in time, pretty much every natural law breaks down at some point. In other words, things like gravity, things like, I forget which forces, I think it's the strong force, didn't exist until a few microseconds after the Big Bang began. Certain fundamental laws of physics did not exist until after the Big Bang happened. If fundamental laws can come into existence, they can go out of existence. Gravity can work and then stop working. I'm telling you, a good scientist will tell you that. A good scientist will admit that. A non-hubristic scientist will tell you that. Only the hubristic ones will say with absolute certainty that laws in science exist. They're just hubristic. They're just egotistical and arrogant. They're trying to understand reality, but really they're trying to shape reality in conformity with their will. Sound familiar? They're trying to shape reality in conformity with their will and intention. Who does that sound like? Interesting. All right. I know that I have neglected my super chats because I was on a roll here. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to read those super chats. Hope you guys who gave those super chats are still here. I've got a wealth of them. Oh, no. I should have you come on and read them for me. Oh, Patchy. God damn, dude. All right. You know what, Patchy? I'm going to be doing something for you soon. So watch your DMs. I'm going to need your address. All right. Jason gave a 10 spot. He says, DH, would you be open to discussing one's initiation with Lucifer? Yes and no, but I have to be clear with you. I never initiated with Lucifer. What? I didn't have to. Did not have to. So if you're initiating with Lucifer, in Become the Maelstrom, there is one method to do it, but that's just one method. Initiation with Lucifer is, first of all, you have to really, when it comes to Lucifer, what you need to do is you need to identify the archetype that Lucifer is. Because Lucifer is just a word. Lucifer can mean Satan to some people. Lucifer can mean an angel to another. Some people like me equate it with Prometheus, Enki. They're all equated because they're all just ways that humanity has engaged with an archetype. And archetypes are an ideal essence. They don't look like anything, sound like anything, but they manifest as these things. So Lucifer is just a mask for the divine. Remember, I'm basically a Hindu in all ways but definition. If I'm being brutally honest, I'm basic. Well, I guess I would say I'm like a Neoplatonic Hindu Hermeticist. Really, I've come up with my own philosophy. I'm going to be honest with you. But the closest thing, at least when it comes to my understanding of spirits, is basically the Hindu version of this. What we call the Hindu version. Okay. All spirits, all beings, including you, me, and the wall, are masks for the divine. Lucifer is a mask. So there's God without attributes. That's Brahman. There's God with attributes. That's Ishvara, Yahweh, or whatever your ultimate deity is. Then there are incarnations or avatars of the divine, which can be spiritual and ethereal, or they can even be physical and incarnate. Again, physicality being an illusion, mind you. So there's the God without attributes. It's just the divine. It doesn't have a persona. It doesn't have a mindset. It's just this enigmatic being. Then you have God with attributes. Literally the nous of Neoplatonism. The Atman or the Ishvara of Hinduism. Oh, little spider, don't climb in my computer. Here, go. Go in the wall. Go over there. There's nothing worse than when spiders like make webs in your computer. I fucking hate that. Poor little fucker. Go live over there where you belong. Go on. Don't make me fucking chase you. I love spiders, but man, they can be annoying. All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So Lucifer, well, determine the mythology you want to use. I like a Gnostic Luciferian mythology, where to me, Lucifer is, I take the Christian myth and I take the Gnostic myth and I take Lucifer as a Promethean figure that realizes that Yahweh is the demiurge. Now, in my personal milieu, my personal headcanon, Yahweh's not a bad guy, just misguided. Doesn't know, doesn't realize. It thinks that it's the ultimate ego. And that means look, the God of the Old Testament does things that we would consider evil all the time, right? From our moralistic, ethical views, you know, very selfish, very jealous, very punishing. There's a reason why the Gnostics thought the God of Abraham was a bad guy, okay? And there's even some ancient aliens stuff that you could look at and be like, Enlil was a bad guy, Enki was a good guy, Enlil was Yahweh, Enki was Lucifer. There's a lot of that going on. You're getting Zoroastrian out of that. Where do you think Zoroastrianism comes from? When you're reading ancient mythology, there's always good guys, bad guys, but Zoroastrianism just simplified it into a yin-yang process of being, right? I'm probably butchering it, but that's how I look at it. Remember, there's an infinite multiverse of potential in the divine. Anything you want it to be, it is. There's no reason to play this game. See, this is what materialism's done to you. You all think that because materialism has gotten into your brain, you think that there is a Lucifer and then there's a not Lucifer. That's not true. There's Lucifer, Lucifer A, Lucifer B, Lucifer C. There's good guy Lucifer, Satan Lucifer, this Lucifer, that Lucifer. They're all real. They're all valid. They're all possible. Which one you get depends on your resonance, your attitude, what you're looking for. You can have Lucifer be a good guy or a bad guy. That's why the tribalistic attitude of Lucifer's good, how dare you say he's bad, that people get, oh, my tribal God. No. They're all valid. Good guy Lucifer, bad guy Lucifer, good guy Jesus, bad guy Jesus. It's all valid. Not everybody will like it. It may not be rational to everybody, but it's all valid. It's all possible. If you wanted, you could say that this soda can is God, because it is. It is. But you could say this is God. You'd be right. Not because the soda can is God, because it's the clay that makes the soda can. So when I flick this, I'm flicking God. Someone's gonna cut that out of context and be like, I'm flicking God, right? God is the substance upon which all things are imprinted into itself. God is consciousness. Consciousness is God. God is consciousness. Your conception of God is a form that consciousness takes. Consciousness is that God. So, when you're initiating with Lucifer, first figure out what your archetype is. I recommend Prometheus as an example. I also recommend Enki as an example. Beyond that, it's a little bit trickier. I would go with Shiva, would be a really good example of Lucifer. I know some people would say no, but that's depending on how your read of mythology is. For me, mythology says Lucifer would be Enki. Jesus is Lucifer to me too, by the way. It's going to piss off people that are Christian. Enki, Prometheus, Jesus, Krishna, Shiva. These are all examples of a Luciferian figure. Actually, no, Krishna wouldn't be really Lucifer. No, correct. I'm wrong there. Krishna is not Lucifer. He's way more like Vishnu. But anyway, I think he's supposed to be the incarnation of Vishnu. I don't know. Maybe Ajna knows. Ajna knows this stuff better than I do. Ajna, ringing Ajna, my fact checker. But to me, Lucifer and Shiva are the same. And there's a reason for that actually has to do with history. If you look, the entity that, if we follow a direct lineage from like Proto-Indo-European history, it looks like Enki is synonymous. Well, the deity Enki would be Poseidon, would be Neptune, would be Shiva, right? Because they're all that same guy. If you look, they've got similar iconography, they've got bidents, tridents, they've got a lot of similarities going on. They're not exactly the same because you're talking about thousands of years and thousands of miles separating them. Thank you, Ajna. Yeah, Krishna's an avatar of Vishnu. I knew I had that twisted in my head for a second there. But Krishna's got a lot of Jesus action going on too. So, okay, Ajna says he's pretty Luciferian. I'll give you, look, that's what I mean. Like, instead of absolutes, right, we're talking about a subjective perspective of an archetype. So some people will look at Krishna and be like, that's a lot like Lucifer. I look at Odin a lot like Lucifer. To me, Odin is a lot like the Lucifer of the Norse pantheon, not Loki. A lot of people are like, Loki's the Lucifer. I mean, he occupies a similar role in the Christian version of Lucifer, the Orthodox version, where he's the opponent of God or something. But you have to remember, Odin is a newer character in the Norse pantheon anyway. He's not mentioned before a certain date. Like, he was adopted from Germanic, the greater European Germanic culture. Odin wasn't, to my knowledge, I have to look it up. I think Arith Herger says that. That's where I got it from. Odin is Wotan that was added in. I don't know what year, 800, 900, we don't know. But before that, he didn't appear in the Norse pantheon. Balder is basically, if I remember correctly, basically Apollo, right? And so this is the thing. No matter where you go, these same deities keep appearing just with different forms, different names, but they're always the same archetype. They're often associated with the same planets, the same this, the same that. It's pretty amazing. It really is. That tells you something, that there is an essence that humans have been looking at that has been shared culture to culture. And I'm not even touching the Celtic stuff because I don't know it well enough. Of course, I'm very Irish and Scottish, so I should probably get in on that. And some of that goes back. Look, we're all talking about Atlantis, guys. In the end of the day, we're talking about Atlantis and Lemuria and whatever else. They all had a mythology or a way of looking at things that was passed on to us. They were spiritual beings. There's no question about it. If there's aliens floating around in UFOs, I guarantee you there's some form of non-dual monist spiritual people, guaranteed. I would bet a lot on that, because if I'm wrong, it don't matter. If I'm wrong, if the aliens know better and we're all just delusional about gods and stuff, there's no spirit world, there's no spirituality at all. It's all, if there's nothing but materialism, then fuck you, I don't care, I'm pretending anyway. It don't matter. I'll just give you the whole, then nothing matters. It doesn't matter what I believe. If materialism is right, then it don't matter. There's no point in caring. Just fucking go play and party, because at that point it don't matter. Why do you think the elites want you so into a materialistic delusion? Because they don't want you to have a high... Look, this is something Christians get right. Christians get a lot of things right. They get a lot of shit wrong. This is one thing they get very right. Very right. Is that this modern effort to despiritualize the world with materialistic, physical... They call it satanic, and I don't call it satanic because I have a different word for it, but in their milieu, Satan is appropriate to call that. It is. Because it's anti-truth. It's anti-God. Now, I understand Satan as the left hand of God, okay? If Michael's the right hand, Satan's the left hand. Satan is Zamael, okay? Period. And Satan's a title. Anything can be Satan. It's the accuser. It's God's prosecutor. It's God's tester. Okay? So Christians, modern Christians have a very dogmatic, Sunday school bullshit version of things. They don't have any knowledge of occultism, the symbolism of the Bible. They have a version of that, but they don't have that deep esoteric knowledge. They just don't know. If they did, they'd run screaming out of church, because the truth of the Bible, the truth of Christianity is exactly opposite to what they're taught. If they knew, and this gets to the point where like modern Protestants have to pretend, well, Lucifer put those similarities in the other religions there to fuck us up. Mithraism was just like Christianity because Lucifer put it there to fool humans until Christ came. All right. Okay. Sure. Dinosaur fossils were put there by the devil to trick us. Okay. All right. Sure. So, now does this mean that there's no objectivity to it? No, I'm just saying that here's the problem with objectivity. It's the same problem with subjectivity. In the non-dual frame, there is no subject-object. That's all illusion. There is just the divine experiencing itself as itself. There's just that. But in the spirit world, guess what? You're not experiencing one. You're experiencing a plurality still. When you go up one level from this, you still see multiplicity. You still see diversity. You still see self and other. I know because I've done it. You can go a little further and you can transcend an identity and just be like a floating camera with no identity and just be witnessing things. There's still one thing and another thing. There's still a duality there. You can go up a little further and then it just looks like a blur. There's no, you sort of go, well, there's a field over here and there's a field over there, but they're not really separate because they blend together like the colors of a rainbow. Think of the colors of a rainbow. Do they not blend together perfectly to the point where it's kind of arbitrary, where you say one color begins and ends? You ever think of that? Then you go up a little further and a little further until eventually you get to the point where there's absolutely no distinguishing of anything. There's just consciousness, blissful, serene consciousness. There's no us, them, left, right, up, down, self, other, big, small. It's just, I've only hit that definitely once, maybe twice in my life. Ajna, how many times, if ever, have you hit Toria? I don't know if you've ever hit Toria. If you have, it's pretty dope. I can only confirm it once for myself. In other words, I only know for a fact I hit it once. I think I hit it a few other times, but I'm not as sure because I might not have got it right because my memory of it's not so good. Sometimes I think those nights when I feel like I'm having a sleepless night, but I still get enough sleep, I think those nights are when I'm having a Toria night, because I'll be sort of in and out of awareness. Like the night goes by and I feel like I am present, but not. Sometimes I am aware of my room, but most of the time I'm not. It's like this weird, I'm awake, but I'm asleep thing. So maybe I get it more often than I think. I've heard people say that you know, I don't want to say, because this will sound arrogant. I'm just going to say, because I got no other word for it, that the enlightened masters don't dream anymore. They're like in Toria all night long. So I don't know if that's true. Then maybe I've been doing it for years and don't know it, but absolutely for sure Toria once for sure. So yeah, exactly. I was just, I don't know if you, exactly. You kind of can't, but you like, I can only describe what it was like going into it. And then afterwards I can't. So going into it felt like I was a drop of water that wasn't separate from the ocean. It was kind of like, you know, like when you do a water drop and it kind of comes up, but it's still connected to the water. And it's just like a glob standing on the end of like a, well, I felt like that drop going back into the water and disappearing and becoming the whole ocean. But there was no ocean. It was like a drop, an ocean and a drop and a drop in an ocean. That's what I felt like. And then once that had passed, I was just in this serene, it didn't look, it was like I was blind, deaf, dumb, and numb. So there was no feeling, no vision, nothing. There was, I saw nothing. I was nothing. It was like all of my senses didn't exist, but I was aware that I was aware, and it was a blissful, peaceful awareness. So, but I've also had visions. I've seen things. I've been, you know, so in the spirit world, there can be objective spirits that are separate from other spirits. And depending upon what frequency you're tuned into, that's a metaphor. Don't take it literally. Whatever frequency you're tuned into, that's the objective afterlife, spirit world, whatever you're going to witness. Yeah. So it's very difficult. It's really difficult. Because it's a lot easier to explain down here than beyond this. If you look at the old artwork that people had of reality, the hierarchy, the layering of reality, whether it's east or west, they're very similar. You have this hard material reality. Below that was the abyss, right? Nothingness. Descending into nothingness. As you go up, things get more airy and light and more abstract until you get to the source, a big sun in the sky, basically. So here is where it's most relatable to us. When you're here, it's hard to relate to any of the other ones. It's hard to talk about. But there's a few, there's like a layer, like, you know, just a little bit off from this one that's just like this, but it's not this. In fact, there's a whole multiverse of that. And I've only touched, then you can go way off into La La Land. You can have psychedelic experiences, which I haven't done. Not exactly. And speaking of psychedelic versus near-death, a lot of people say like psychedelic is like a near-death. It's like it, but it's not the same, because there are people who've had both. There are people who've had near-death experiences and psychedelic trips, and they will tell you that they're not the same thing. The near-death was way more vivid, way more real, way more objectively real to them. Whereas the psychedelic experience was close, but no cigar. So what I think is happening is psychedelics, and we know this, when you take psychedelics, brain activity slows down. Like, scientists used to think that psychedelics stimulated your brain into having an hallucination. Turns out they do the exact opposite. They shut parts of your brain down, specifically your cerebral cortex. In other words, that part of your brain that's you. Shuts down you. And yet you still have these wild ass rides. It shuts it all down except for some fundamental shit in your you know, central brain, the part of your brain that does, you know, breathing and shit. Most of your brain shuts down or has diminished activity, and you have a more vivid experience than when you're awake. Come on, isn't it obvious? Your brain is like a filter. It's not even a transceiver like people think. It's a filter. Yeah, it might be like a transceiver, but your brain is a thought form, guys, that acts like a filter. Your brain, what you call a brain, is the veil. That's the veil that makes this look like this. Get out of that, and it can look like anything you want. Anything. You could see colors and shapes that don't exist in this reality. You know how many times that's been reported? People seeing colors in their near-death experience or psychedelic experience that don't exist in this reality. You can even see hyperdimensional objects. I've seen one. I saw a hypercube. I can't tell you what it looked like, but I know I saw it. If you ask me now, I would just draw that usual little square within a square thing. But what I saw... Now, I saw a hypercube as it really looks. Really did. I know I did. But I can't remember what it looks like. So you'd say, well, you hallucinated, or you hallucinated remembering it. No, because I remember when it happened, looking at it, oh shit, this is totally different than, oh my, that's an actual hypercube. Yeah. Fuck. Why do you think I'm so passionate about this? Because when you do this stuff, you can't make it up. You cannot, this cannot be imagined. You can't imagine the things I'm saying to you. You can tell this is a real thing. People who have transcended even a little bit can tell other people who have too. Within a few minutes of knowing someone, I can tell whether they've done psychedelics or if they're a meditator and they've transcended. I can tell within because there's a total tonal shift in their whole everything is different. They look at you like they know you, and you return the favor. All right, let's go on to some of these others. So if you're trying to get to that Lucifer character, Jason, focus on that archetype. Figure out the archetype, then worry about the form. You get the archetype right, you can even say to hell with Lucifer, just make it Prometheus if you want. It doesn't have to be Lucifer. Patchy with the 5 spot says, I like the Necronomicon and Hermeticism. But you guys already knew that. Patchy also says, for 5, I've always found near-death reports fascinating. I feel like the establishment simply fear what they don't know. Yeah. And they're trying to repress this stuff. I promise you that. With everything that I've learned about the New World Order, the WEF, the way that the original Illuminati was corrupted, or at least I believe it was, their idea, which was noble and good, was twisted into a system of control and Marxism, basically. Fuck Marxism. Not that necessarily communism is awful, because, you know, it's just an economic model. Marxism, that shit's bad. Communism, whatever, I don't like it. It's not my thing. Marxism is the real bad thing, especially when applied to social, spiritual, and everything else. Oh my God. No individuality. Everybody's just a cog in the machine. Fuck that. I know that's not how it's written or believed in by others, but that's all I see whenever I read it. All right. Life is but a dream, says Patchy for 2. Yes, you are completely right. Patchy says for 5, memories are just expressing impressions you had. That's what I think. You're right. I mean, what you call a memory is just a replay. It's not the actual. It's a replay. It's a recreation replay. It's not like you're rewinding a tape and rewatching. It's a recreation. An MRI is just graphs on a screen. Exactly. Damn it, Patchy. Patch says, I always thought those old medieval geocentric maps of the solar system were more so symbolic. Yes, they are. Exactly. That's the thing. Modern scientists look at these things like dopes, and they literally think that they thought that rocks had literal fire in them, not the manifestation, the metaphor of fire. Patchy says, for $5, just in different languages and custom, but the same message overall in these different paths. Yes, correct. Patchy says for 2, that sounds like Crowley. It sure does. That's when I said, what I say, I know what I said. What was it? Shit. Yes, magic is the something of reality in conformity with will. Yeah. That's basically what the scientist is trying to do. River Soul says, just saying hi and thanks. Thank you, River. All right. I am done with supers. No more super dupers because I'm going to be going in a minute. So I'm running out of steam here. Let me see. Jen Botts is here. I just mentioned you before that we should have you on again, Jen. Primitive Z. Let me go back. There's a lot of people here I haven't seen before, or at least haven't seen in a while. Liquid Parallax. What's up, brother? Pain is weakness, leaving the body. CJ said something very wise. You treat life as if you are a character in a video game. Where the experiencer can influence the experience, magic appears as if it can cause change because you come into alignment with the divinity. Yes, and it only appears as if it causes change. It is a facilitator of change, not a cause. Let's put it like that. I like the word facilitator because facilitate doesn't mean you cause it. It means like you're a conduit or something. It means that you participate and you manifest. Manifestation is not a cause-effect thing. It is a revelation thing. So magic is a way to reveal, to manifest something, not cause it. I like that. Ashna says all scientists should take a good Vipassana retreat and end it with a big acid dose. Let's make it an ayahuasca dose, but I agree completely. Then you're a true scientist, probably. That's why I love, what was his name? Hey, honey, what's the name of that show? Hey, Michael here. Oh, Vsauce. Michael from Vsauce. He did an ayahuasca trip. If you ever watched the episode where he took the ayahuasca, his mind was fucking blown. You could tell when that shit was over, he had the look. He had that look in his eye. I think he ended up rationalizing it away as a hallucination, but even he, I know, doubts. Like, if you watch him going into it and then him after, he's not the same guy. It changed him. And he probably still wrestles with it because he probably resists it. There's no real science to that inner science, correct? Liquid Parallax says scientists are just mathematicians and they belong to the cult of scientism these days. Not much real science anymore. Natural, observable, repeal. So here's the thing. Mathematics is divine. In other words, mathematics is the fundamental language. So mathematics is, okay, let me refine my statement. Mathematics is both a language and an ideal essence. And the language is what most people think of when they think of math. They think of characters like the number 2 and equal signs or the scientific notation. That's notation. And they think formulas. Formulas are just relationships. Formulas are not, what you think of as a formula is a notation of a relationship. Okay? The equal sign is telling you that something's equivalent to something else, meaning in relationship, it's 1 and 1. No matter what the values are, it's 1 and 1. They are the same, they're basically the same thing, just on different sides of, so they're in relationship of equivalence. Okay? So when you do E equals MC squared, all you're saying is that energy is equivalent to what we think of as mass times the speed of light squared. Okay? In other words, if you have a certain amount of mass and you accelerate it to the speed of light squared, it's equivalent to, it basically becomes energy. And energy can be converted to matter or mass, physical matter, by basically, well, if you take energy and turn it into matter, you get mass going the speed of light squared. It's pretty nuts. So there's equivalence. That's relationship. Energy in the relationship to matter looks like that. Mathematics, as we think of it, as most of you were taught it, is just a system of notation. It's just a bunch of it's a pattern. Mathematics in its purest form transcends that. Now, I've got a mental block with mathematics. I've got a slight, probably part of my ADD or whatever. I have like number dyslexia. If you ever like watch me try to do math, even with a calculator, I struggle. Like despite having an IQ around 140, I struggle with actual mathematics. Not logic, not reason, not the essence or intuition of math. I don't have a problem with that. When it comes to just doing equations, I fucking have a hard time. I cannot, which is funny because when I was in elementary, junior high, or was it high school? No, it was high school. I got chicken pox in 10th grade. Even though I had it already, I had it again. I guess I didn't have it strong enough when I was a kid. So I had a second time. So I ended up being sick for the last like month of my 10th grade. And I was failing everything because I didn't like school. All right. I know people go, ooh. No, I was not a good student at all. I still am not. I have to self-teach everything because I don't do well in structured school. Unless you give me the right teacher. The right teacher will get me going, but most teachers can't. So I was failing that year of algebra. Big time. And I had to get a tutor because when you're out for a month, the school sends home tutors instead. Because you can't just not go to school. So they send home tutors. So they sent me a math tutor. And this lady, she was like Nurse Ratched. She came in and she was like, man, she was Republican. That's all I'm going to say. She was Republican. She comes over and she's like, we're starting at 7 in the morning every day. I'm like, what? I'm sick, bitch. You know? So she comes in and somehow, I mean, I look, she was a bitch, but I miss this lady. This lady, she got me in 2 weeks. I learned the entire year's worth of algebra in 2 weeks. And I passed with a 96. Not the class, the final. The final, I got a 96. After 2 weeks of her tutoring, I learned it that well, that quickly. Even she was a little surprised. She didn't expect I would pass with that score. She knew I could do it. She was like, I know you can do this. I've read enough of your shit. I know you're smart. You can do this. She sat me down every day, and in 2 weeks, I learned the whole year's worth of math. I didn't pass a single test the whole year. Okay. That's how dumb I was with this shit. In 2 weeks, I got it. Do I remember it today? No, because I have a mental block with math. I just do. I've accepted it. I've used Khan Academy to try to catch up and try. Nope. I struggle. My dad struggled too. I think I got it from him. He struggled with math. Usually, when I used to watch him do his calculations for engineering, when he was going to school to be an engineer, he'd sit there and be like, such and such and 3/16, and he'd like try to. I can't remember numbers. I can't hold them. I can't do mental math. I just can't. And if I do it on paper, I do a lot better. But even then, I have a real hard time holding numbers in my head. I just can't do it. So, whew. Jen says she's doing a drive-by. Yeah, she's moving soon. I guess she's gone. If you're still here, Jen, what's up? I hope your move goes well. If you're not here, then I still hope your move goes well. Screw it. It'll be nice. See, Jen, I wish she was here. She said Mao and Marxism. That's why I like Jen. She's just a straight up commie. Which I'm usually okay with straight up commies. I don't like Marxists. I just generally don't like Marxists. No offense, Ajna, but we're all entitled to our opinions, right? That's right. CJ says there's math without numbers. Exactly. Whew. All right. So, I'm gonna bail. No current events conversation tonight. We're gonna keep it tame for the YouTube censors. Part of the reason I'm not in the mood to talk about that stuff is because I'm reaching a point where, number one, it's toxic as shit out there. And I've already got my mind made up on what's going on. I made a post on Facebook the other day. I basically said, I am no longer as concerned about the trajectory of history or nations as I am with how the average person is going to react when the truth comes out. because it is coming out. But I'm talking about, there's people right now that even with all the truth that's come out, they're still in denial, and the cognitive dissonance that's going to hit when all the whole truth starts coming out, when the real villains are exposed, or at least some of them, I don't know if people are going to be able to live with themselves. I really don't. The stuff that I think is going to be revealed, even if only 10% of what I think is going to be revealed is revealed, there's going to be people who are going to feel so much guilt for how they treated other people. At least I hope they do. All these people saying that Trump supporters should be locked up right now. If the truth can penetrate that thick skull that they got, I don't know how they're going to live with themselves. I wouldn't be able to. People are insane right now, and it's going to get worse, and I don't want to talk about it much more than that. That's all I want to say. I am not worried about what's going to happen as much right now as I am worried about how people are going to react to it. Because I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is already done. I'm pretty sure it's a done deal already. We're just watching a Truman Show to get the people ready. I'm not kidding. We're watching a Truman Show to get the people ready to accept what has to happen next. Guys, this is you're right, Ajna, it does. And you know how we know that? Because the hidden masters that are manipulating all this, they're not doing this for political reasons. There's a spiritual reason for it. If you really think about it, if you really transcend all of this materiality and all this crap, one thing Christians get right, this is a spiritual war, but it's not a war. On one level, it's a war. At the highest level, not even the highest level, just one level above the war, there's beings, both incarnate and discarnate, both material and immaterial, which are shaping this current state of affairs according to a plan that's thousands and thousands and millions and billions, because time is irrelevant to them. Humans are being put through a crucible. This is an evolutionary step. And it's up to us whether we go up the ladder or down. But it's not a simple thing as a straight line or even a left or a right. This is a multiversal timeline divergence. And individual beings are filtering into their timelines as we speak. If you're listening to me right now, then you are currently on what I call the right side of history trajectory. I don't know which timeline you're going to end up in exactly, but it's not going to be the New World Order dystopia one, at least not right now. Could happen down the road. How do I know this? Guys, the BRICS nations recently decided to go to the gold standard. If the New World Order had any power at all anymore, they wouldn't do that. The BRICS nations basically did this to the New World Order. Because the New World Order is all about central digital banking fiat currency bullshit. If you needed a canary in the coal mine to know that the New World Order is dead, that would be it. That would be it. To me. Some people would disagree. Some people would say, well, that's always been the plan because that hurts the dollar. Okay, fine. Whatever. They're uniting together. They're resisting New World Order elements, and they're going into the gold standard. That, to me, says it's over. They're not scared anymore because the United States is no longer there either. If the United States was really under the Northern thumb, we'd suddenly be going to war with all of them, wouldn't we? Why aren't we doing that? Because Biden's not in control of the military. And we'll get into that in another live stream. I'm going to leave it at that. Let you guys use your imagination. Yes, Ajna, you're exactly right. Spiritual knowledge trumps politics and ideology forever. I could not agree more. This is why, even though we disagree about Marx, we could hug, have a beer, and hang out. I guarantee it. We'd have a great fucking time. I have a feeling me and Ajna would get along, just like a lot of you guys would be getting along really great. Boyd staring back. He says, I like the New World Order better when it had Kevin Nash and Hollywood Hogan in it. Oh my God, dude. That's like my friend. I had this Muslim friend. His name was Amir. And he used to crack jokes about the Twin Towers all day long. because when he was younger, his favorite wrestlers was the Twin Towers. Then 9/11 happened, and the motherfucker would literally, he literally had memes of himself flying the planes because he was so obviously Muslim. It's so fun. I love that dude. I should message him. I haven't heard from him in a while. Oh my God, I love that guy. He had such a good sense of humor, and he was a total patriot. He knew a lot of shit. He had some of the best memes, absolutely some of the best fucking memes, I swear to God. That guy had a sense of humor, like, oof. I swear, man. That dude's sense of humor was just lit. I should message him. It's been a while. He was the guy, he went to a gun show with me, literally wearing a t-shirt that says "Vote from the Rooftops" with a dude with a sniper rifle on the rooftop in silhouette. This guy was fucking hysterical. He was probably an FBI agent or something. That's how perfect he was. He was too good. Like, oh man. All right, guys, that's it for me. My voice is going. I'm a little bit tired. To everybody who supered me, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Patchy, I'm going to DM me on Discord, Patchy. I'm going to want your address because I think, you know what? I'm just going to show you. My wife and I were talking. I'm holding this, and I'm going to do probably a few more tweaks to it. But you have been so generous for like the last, I don't know if you're still here, Patchy. If you're still here, then you'll be happy. You've been so generous like the last year. You're like my #1 fucking guy. So I'm going to touch this up a little bit more. And if you're still here, this is, remember this? You were like, ooh, I'm going to want that one. So DM me and we'll talk about this one. This has the 50 different sigils of Marduk on it. I'm going to touch it up a little bit, decorate it a little bit more. I don't know when, but you know, we'll talk about it. If you want this, we'll talk. So let me know. I'm sure you'd have a blast using this in ritual. So, all right, gangbangers and wang dang doodles. I will talk to you guys next week, most likely. Oof. Let me get this put back together. But yeah, I was actually saying this today to my wife. I was like, you know what, Camilla? Because I found it, I was working on it, and I forgot that I was working on it. It was kind of like I cleaned up, and I'm like, oh, I can't just like, what am I gonna do with this? Because we're not using Etsy lately. Like we kind of went on vacation from that. Like I don't feel like just putting it up for sale. You know what? Patchy's been like throwing so much money at us. Let me reserve that for him and make a deal with him. Get it to him for, let me give it to him for a deep discount because he's been so sweet with all these super chats. So DM me on Discord and we'll talk it over, buddy. So all right, guys. Love you guys a lot, especially you guys that are cool. If you're new here, please make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this out to people. As Ajna says, mind the Ganuna gap. Yes, exactly. All right, guys. See you next time. Mind the shadows.